This is a service of a Eberspacher Hydronic Mark II D12. The model is a 25-24-72 model, and it's a 12 kilowatt heating system for a boat. Over the past year we've noticed that starting the heater to put the heating into the boat has been more and more difficult. Here on Nauticat we used to have to switch the switch on for the heating and then switch it off again, then switch it back on again and switch it off again until eventually it would fire up, and then just recently it just gave up altogether with a great puff of smoke coming out the side. And after some research, it looks like we need to replace two of these tiny little filters. These filters are where the diesel goes into the combustion chamber. So we've got Eberspacher Hydronic heater. This is it in our port engine bay. You would think you'd be able to replace these service parts whilst it's in situ, but you can't. You have to take the entire heater out and work on it on a bench. Quite a lengthy job, probably going to take at least 4 hours of your time, because it's well worth making sure that you get every little piece of carbon build-up that's inside the heater and inside these filter areas. Get everything removed and then it will work efficiently. The tools you're going to need are a 13mm ring spanner. This takes the exhaust off. And then you'll also need a 7mm box spanner, or a 7mm socket to undo all the Jubilee clips. One there for the air intake, one up there for the diesel inlet. Then next to the diesel inlet at the top is the flow and one of the flow or the return for the coolant. So both those need to be undone, and that pipe this pipe here needs to be lifted off, and you'll need a pot to collect all the coolant. And then down here also you'll need to undo this one and this one, slide off this pipe, and the coolant will come out of there as well. But there won't be a lot, maybe half a pint, because we've turned off the two valves that send the coolant around the boat. So now I'm just about to drain down the fluid. I'd like to use a pair of these on this rubber hose. All I did was gently grip hold of it and give it a twist up and down until it broke the seal that has been created over the years. And then if I just pull through there, you'll be able to see some of the liquid coming out. So I disconnected the bottom hose first, which drained down the heater unit plus the little bit of residue in the pipes going to the valves, the on and off valves for the rest of the system. And then I disconnected the top pipe which runs the fluid, the heating fluid. And interestingly enough, there was nothing that came out of that top bit, so it must have all drained down by opening the bottom one first. The final job is to then remove the electricity from it, and that is done by pulling this tiny little piece of plastic out to remove the catch and then lowering the electricity. So that is the little clip that you need to pull outwards just a fraction so that it unclicks, and then the power can just be lowered out. So, and then finally there's 4 bolts, 4 13mm bolts, which is the same as the exhaust size bolt, and you just remove those 4 bolts and then this whole unit will come out. So now the heater is out, just go through those fixing points. There's 4 bolts, there's 2 at the top and then also 2 at the bottom. That fixes it to the wall, and this little pipe here is your fuel that goes in, that needs to be disconnected. This is the coolant, or the heating liquid that heats up your radiators, and this is the other end, so flow and return. And then the only other thing is the air intake and the exhaust, which are that point there, and the exhaust, which is the dirty bit there. And then the electricity goes into that socket there. So now we've got it off, we now have to completely strip it down to put the service filter in. Seeing as this filter needs to be replaced once a year, or if you don't use it very often, probably a couple of years, it's the most hardest place to get to, and the only thing that needs replacing. So I'll just remove that. And that's done with a 13mm spanner as well. The first part to strip down on this is the plastic cover on the top. We will need a short dumpy screwdriver and then carefully remove the top. Next job is to take these 4 bolts out. These are star bolts, and that will remove the burning chamber from the fan. You will also need to remove these 2 sensors. These are only push fit, and they're only held in with these little spring clips. So just loosen off the star bolt, turn this spring clip out of the way, and then just pull these off, and careful not to damage the wire. It's only that O-ring that's keeping it in place and sealed. And then the last job is to take off this final bolt. So now we're left with the 2 pieces. This piece here is the burn chamber that heats up the water. It goes through this pump, pumps the water out. And then this section here, which is the fan, and inside there somewhere is the filter. So we've still got to carry on dismantling before we can change this service part. So now we're getting down to the final part of the stripping down. I've removed the 3 star bolts that held that on the top. That then comes undone. You remove this side piece of plastic, comes out, and that releases the wires. And now comes the most difficult part, which is taking the 2 glow plugs out and getting the wire gauze out from inside there and there. So the hardest job of this whole process is to remove these 2 small filters. They've been coked up and really tight in there with bits of old burnt diesel. This is what a new filter looks like, and you have to basically get a screwdriver in there, get a set of pliers in there, or alternatively the trusty hairpin. Put that inside, try and pull it out, try and release it with a small screwdriver, digging away at the sides to try and remove some of the coke off of it, or the spent diesel, and then you're ready. Well, then you need to clean all the little grooves in there where the fuel goes in. Make sure that the air inlet is clear on both sides, and then also you'll notice right in the back inside where the holes are where the diesel goes through, that will be coked up as well, so that needs cleaning out. This is a glow plug. This is the new filter that you're going to put into this chamber using the black plastic applicator that comes with the filter. Once you've managed to dig this old filter out of this chamber, you'll be left with a lot of hard, extremely hard carbon build-up inside this groove. This groove is where the fuel gets injected into. There's a very small groove there, and the fuel gets injected into there and then goes through this filter, which would be lowered down into this section. The carbon builds up all inside this groove, and you need to get a thin screwdriver or anything you can, get as much light in there as you can, and dig out as much of this area you can. So either by using a pointed, not a needle but something stronger than that, or maybe a angled piece of tool that you can hold, and then you can use this point to dig away at all of this, being careful not to damage any of that. Once the fuel comes into this chamber where the filter is, it then gets heated by the glow plug, and then it explodes and ignites into this area here. And there's a plate that goes there, and there's a small hole through there. Behind that, you'll get a lot of build-up all the way around the entry point of when it comes through the filter and goes into this combustion chamber here. You need to try and drop a little light down there to see where it all is. It's all built up on this back edge as well. All inside that, you'll need a long screwdriver to get all the way down inside this chamber through this circular hole, and then into the back of this part. Dig all this out. You've got to spend a lot of time, because this is the reason why it doesn't work. This carbon build up here stops the fuel going down. The filter gets completely, this filter here gets completely clogged up, so the fuel can't get through it. And even if it's heating up in this area and combusting in this area, the fuel's not going down into this combustion chamber and heating correctly. So that's going to be where you spend all your time. Taking the water heater out of the boat, putting it on the bench, taking it all apart and putting it back together again is a fraction of the time. This is where you want to focus your attention. And once I'd done all of this, put it back in, switched on the heating button, and it fired up straight away. So I know this is the problem, and I haven't had an issue since. Good luck to everybody.